Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're doing a celebratory retrospective on something truly fascinating. We are unpacking an entire decade of groundbreaking media psychology research by Dr. Phillip Madison. If you've ever wondered how the media you consume silently reshapes the way you think, how you interact, or even how you understand yourself, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to explore the hidden architecture of our minds. But let me ask you a question to get us started. Have you ever, practiced a conversation with a favorite celebrity in your head? Or maybe you've had a full-blown imaginary argument with a controversial YouTuber while you're just taking a shower. Or perhaps you felt a surprisingly close personal bond with a fictional TV character. If you are nodding your head right now, don't worry, you are completely normal. But what you're actually experiencing is a highly complex psychological phenomenon.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our agenda for today. First, the inner social network. Second, the Parasocial Compensation Hypothesis. Third, hate-watching and moral superiority. Fourth, case studies on Trump and Jones. Fifth, a multi-generational research team. And finally, future frontiers covering AI and VR.
Let's start right off with Section 1, the inner social network.
To really appreciate Dr. Madison's work, we have to look at how we communicate with ourselves. There are two key concepts you absolutely need to know. First, parasocial relationships, or PSRs. These are those one-sided bonds we form with media figures. You feel like you know them intimately, but they literally have no idea who you are. Second, imagined interactions, or IIs. These are the cognitive scripts, the functional daydreams, and the internal conversations we have playing in our minds. So the crucial takeaway here is that the exact same mental engine driving our real-world relationships, like the way we mentally rehearse conversations with our boss, also powers our one-sided connections with influencers, politicians, and characters. It is the exact same internal machinery at work.
Dr. Madison put it so brilliantly right here. Parasocial relationships are imagined interactions with people we only encounter through media. Wow. This concisely links our intrapersonal communication, how we talk to ourselves, directly to media effects. These relationships aren't just accidental byproducts of watching TV, they are actively maintained by the imaginative work we do in our heads long after we've turned off the screen.
Moving on to Section 2, the Parasocial Compensation Hypothesis.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we know how we form these one-sided bonds, but why do we actually form them? Well, the parasocial compensation hypothesis frames media consumption as a deliberate social substitution. The hypothesis asks a really simple question. When people feel like something is missing in their real-life relationships, do they compensate by leaning on their parasocial ones? Dr. Madison and his colleagues found that yes, under certain circumstances, socializing with mediated persona actually serves as a highly functional alternative to human interaction. People are literally filling a real social void with media figures.
But who actually does this and when? Through some pretty extensive survey data, the research isolated specific predictors. It turns out people actively choose parasocial relationships over human interaction when they lack real-life support or experience high social anxiety. But it's also about internal utility. When people use their imaginations for internal rehearsal or just to gain self-understanding, they're way more likely to compensate socially. Furthermore, if their imagined interactions have a lot of variety, or if they exhibit what's called self-dominance, meaning they imagine themselves doing most of the talking and controlling the narrative, they are much more likely to use a media figure to fulfill their interpersonal needs. It basically becomes a safe, controlled way to socialize.
Which brings us to Section 3, hate-watching and moral superiority.
So what about the darker, kind of paradoxical side of media consumption? Like, why do we watch things we actively despise? Well, the research reveals a fascinating three-step cognitive pathway. Step 1 is downward social comparison. We watch someone behave terribly on screen, and we instantly compare our own behavior to theirs. Step 2 is moral disengagement. We mentally distance ourselves from their actions, confirming to ourselves that, hey, we would never do such a thing. Which leads directly to Step 3, feelings of moral superiority. Hate-watching is secretly used to artificially inflate our own sense of moral integrity. We are using the disliked persona as a benchmark just to make ourselves feel like better people.
To really ground this in reality, listen to this raw confession from one of the study's actual participants. I feel that I am morally superior to someone else, and I find reasons to feel more morally superior. That's just my go-to thing to feel better. That perfectly captures the essence of the research, right? Hate-watching is rarely about the media itself. It's a completely internal psychological tool we use to validate our own personal morals and feel good about who we are.
All right, Section 4, Case Studies on Trump and Jones.
And this brilliantly illustrates how these personal psychological theories apply to extreme, high-profile societal figures. Now, I want to be absolutely crystal clear here. Our analysis maintains strict academic neutrality. We are entirely focused on the psychology of the audience, not the politics of the figures themselves. For example, looking at Donald Trump, the primary parasocial function for his audience was catharsis, a sense of emotional release. And the secondary effect of seeking that catharsis was a huge increase in social media use integration, or SMUI. Basically, people integrated platforms like Twitter deeper into their daily routine specifically to engage with them. On the flip side, with InfoWars host Alex Jones, the primary function was conflict linkage, audiences linking the conflict on screen to their own personal lives. Astonishingly, engaging in that specific parasocial function predicted higher perceived credibility of the host.
This 2022 study, In Search of Catharsis, is so vital because it proves audiences aren't just passive receptacles for information. Regardless of an individual's personal opinions of Trump, it was the internal desire for emotional catharsis that actually drove them to embed social media more deeply into their everyday lives. We are literally using these figures as tools for our own psychological needs.
Moving to Section 5, a multi-generational research team.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because a decade of discoveries like this definitely doesn't happen in a vacuum. Look at this incredible lineage of collaboration. It starts with the foundational work of Dr. James Honeycutt back in 2010, establishing imagined interaction theory. Then Dr. Madison and Lance Porter successfully bridged that into media effects and parasocial relationships in 2015. By 2016, Al Grusley is co-authoring the Parasocial Compensation Hypothesis. Then you have this amazing newer generation of scholars stepping up: Covington, Wright, and Gaspard driving the Alex Jones credibility research in 2021, and Phillip Otter and Rehearse pushing the boundaries on social media integration in 2022. It is just an absolute masterclass in how Dr. Madison assembled diverse, multi-generational talent to continuously push an academic field forward.
Finally, Section 6, Future Frontiers in AI and VR.
As much as we've learned over the last decade, technological leaps are about to fundamentally alter everything we just talked about. Dr. Madison points out in his recent commentary on immersion that virtual reality represents a transformative technology that immerses users, offering multisensory experiences. Think about that for a second. Historically, our parasocial bones were formed across a flat, two-dimensional screen, right? But as hardware like the Oculus lowers the barriers to entry and AI rapidly advances, we are entering an era of true embodiment. Immersion and physical presence in a virtual space will create unprecedented multisensory parasocial attachments. We aren't just watching a character anymore, it's going to feel like we are standing right in the room with them.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to summarize our whole journey today. If we already use media figures to compensate for real-life loneliness, to artificially inflate our moral superiority, and to find emotional catharsis, how will your inner partnerships change when the media can finally talk back to you in real time? When the AI persona on the other side of your VR headset learns your exact personality and responds to your imagined interactions perfectly? The line between the parasocial and the social is blurring faster than ever. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating decade of research with me, and I hope this completely changes the way you think about the media you consume.